Every year, more areas of our national parks are being marked as restricted. Not for conservation, not for research. Something else is happening. Armed guards, unmarked vehicles, and equipment that doesn't belong in a wilderness area. But here's what caught my attention. These aren't your typical restricted zones. The signs say Environmental Research Area or Habitat Restoration, but the security tells a different story. Military-grade fencing, surveillance equipment, and guards who don't wear Park Service uniforms. These zones keep appearing in specific patterns, always near certain types of terrain, always with the same level of security, and always with unmarked trucks moving in and out at night. The official explanation doesn't match what people are seeing. Tonight, we're going to look at what's really happening in these areas. From the ranger who quit after what he saw being loaded into those trucks, to the maintenance worker who found something he wasn't supposed to see. The pattern points to something bigger, something they're trying to hide in plain sight. Let's start with what happened at Yellowstone last summer. A maintenance worker with 12 years of experience came across something that made him question everything he knew about these parks. He was doing routine repairs on a service road, one of those back routes tourists never see. That's when he noticed new signs had gone up overnight. Environmental Research Area, no unauthorized access. But here's what made him suspicious. The signs weren't Park Service standard. The font was different. The mounting style was wrong, and they had no department markings. 2 days later, he saw the trucks. Not park vehicles, not military. These were unmarked, solid black, no license plates, with some kind of modified suspension system. They came in after dark, always 3 at a time, always following the same route to a section of the park that wasn't on any maintenance maps. One night, he stayed late to see where these trucks were going. What he saw next challenges everything we've been told about these restricted zones. The trucks were carrying containers, not standard cargo containers, but something different. Heavy-duty sealed units with some kind of ventilation system built in. But here's what really stands out. Every time these trucks passed through, all park radio communications would go dead. Not just static, complete silence. Even cell phones would stop working within a mile radius. This maintenance worker isn't the only one who's noticed these patterns. Similar reports have come from parks across the country. Always the same signs, always the same trucks, always the same communications blackouts. Our next account comes from a former park ranger who worked at Mount Rainier National Park. He reached out after seeing some of my previous videos. Even though he hasn't worked there in 8 years, he's still cautious about sharing his story. Here's what he told me.
No, I want to be clear. I'm only talking about this because people need to know. Even though I quit back in 2016, I'm still pretty nervous about using my name. These people, they have ways of finding things out. I was working nights, patrolling the eastern service roads, areas most tourists never see. I've been doing it for 7 years at that point. I knew everything about the whole process, every turn, every day, every restricted area. But one night in August, something changed. They installed this new fencing, not the regular Park Service kind. This was serious, 12 feet high with some kind of sensors built into the posts. There's no warning, no announcement, just appears overnight. The signs say wildlife research, authorized personnel only. But here's the thing, I was the senior ranger. I'd never heard of any wildlife research in that area. 3 days later, I saw the first convoy. 4 black trucks. No markings, no plates. They had these massive containers on the back. But they weren't normal cargo containers. These things had power supplies, cooling systems built right into them. And the weird part, the containers were humming. Not like a generator or anything like that. This was something different. Something that made your teeth hurt if you got too close to them. Every time these trucks came through, radios would die. But it wasn't just static. The batteries would drain completely. I've never seen anything like it. Brand new batteries dead in seconds. Even my flashlight would go out. The only thing that kept working was this old analog watch that I carried with me. So obviously I'm reporting all this to my supervisor. The next day, 2 guys show up at the station. No uniforms, no park service ID, just these black suits and credentials that I had never seen before. They took my reporter, told me it was being handled at a higher level. Yeah, right. That night, they changed all our patrol routes. That whole section of the park became off limits to regular rangers. They brought in new security teams, not park service, not military. These guys had different equipment, different protocols. But here's what really got me. One night, one of those containers was damaged during transport. Not badly, just like a small dent, but the response, within 20 minutes, helicopters were there. Teams in hazmat suits, they evacuated everybody within 2 miles. They would even let us back in there for 3 days. So when we finally returned, that whole section of the road had been repaved. Fresh concrete, new gravel. Like they were trying to cover something up. I don't know. This whole thing was way too much for me. I quit. I put in my 2 weeks. I couldn't handle what I was seeing. But sometimes I still check the satellite maps of that area. The restricted zones seem to be getting a little bigger. Whatever they're moving through there, they don't want anyone to see it. Even now, 8 years later, I still get nervous talking about this. These people, they have long memories and a very deep reach.
I also spoke to a woman who was an office administrator for a certain national park. Here's what she had to say.
I wasn't supposed to see it. My supervisor had asked me to go find some budget reports from his desk. He was out sick that day. The papers were buried under this mess of folders. That's when I saw it. Container 7B. I should have just kept looking for those budget reports, but it was just sitting there, mixed in with everything else. The photos kind of spilled out when I moved the folders around. At first I thought it was just some kind of joke, like those fake Bigfoot reports we get sometimes from tourists. But then I saw the letterhead, the official stamps, and the detailed medical data. This thing, it was like a wolf, but wrong. It was massive, extraordinarily tall. The muscle density readings were off the charts. Its bone structure was like hybridized somehow. Like the claws could tear through reinforced steel like paper. The face, that's what keeps me up at night. It's a wolf's muzzle, but too long, with extra rows of teeth, almost like a shark, but I don't know, it's just so weird. The bite force test showed over 15,000 pounds of pressure per square inch. In the eyes, intelligent and calculating. These were all the test results. Strength measurement showing it could deadlift over 4 tons. Speed test clocking it at 50 miles per hour in short bursts. But what really got me were the regeneration notes. It could heal from what should have been fatal wounds in minutes. Broken bones, deep lacerations, severe burns, all healed, barely leaving any scars. They have been studying its intelligence too. Problem-solving abilities far beyond any known canine species. They could understand complex patterns, use tools, even demonstrate basic mathematical comprehension. The researchers noted it was watching them, learning the routines. The incident report was at the bottom of the pile. 6 armed guards taken down in under 10 seconds. It wasn't an accident either. It had been planned. Watching, waiting. It had been a 3-inch thick titanium restraint bar like it was plastic. Tore through reinforced steel doors like they were paper. There was genetic analysis too. They couldn't fully map its DNA. Parts of it seemed to shift, like it was actively evolving. And there were sequences that they couldn't identify. Not wolf, not human, not anything known in the database. In those eyes, in every photo, every video still, they looked human, not just intelligent but aware, like it knew exactly what it was, what we were doing, and it was just waiting. I put everything back exactly how I found it. I never said a word to my supervisor, but I couldn't sleep that night. I couldn't focus. I had to quit. I couldn't deal with what was going on there. I told them that my mother was sick and I needed to care for her. If you're looking into this, remember something. The file showed it wasn't just strong or fast. It was smart, patient, and from what I read, it's probably still evolving.
Now here's an email I received last year that stuck with me. I need to tell someone about what happened to me at this national park last September. I've been hiking there for almost a decade, but what I encountered that day, I still can't make sense of it. It was a Tuesday afternoon, unusually quiet. The weather was perfect, crisp autumn air, clear skies. Around 3 p.m., I decided to explore a less traveled path I'd noticed on previous hikes. About a mile in, everything changed. The air got heavy, different somehow. Then the smell hit me. In my years of hiking and hunting, I've never encountered anything like it. It was like rotting meat, but mixed with this sharp chemical smell that burned my nose and eyes. Almost metallic, like blood but wrong somehow. The forest floor was torn up in places I passed. The undergrowth was crushed in wide paths, like something massive had moved through. There were deep gouges in the trees, not like anything I'd seen before. These were higher up, deeper. Some of the marks looked fresh, the sap still wet. That's when I heard the movement deeper in the forest. Something big, moving fast. Before I could process what was happening, 2 men appeared on the trail ahead of me. They wore Park Service uniforms, but something felt off. Their uniforms were too clean, too new. Both carried heavy-duty radios I'd never seen rangers use before. The taller one spoke first. "Sir, I need you to turn around and head back immediately. We're dealing with an emergency situation in this area." His voice was calm, but had this edge to it that made my skin crawl. The other one stayed a few steps behind, hand resting on what I'm pretty sure was a concealed weapon. They kept scanning the trees while talking to me, like they were expecting something. The first guy asked if I'd encountered any wildlife or noticed anything unusual on my hike. The way he asked, it was like he was probing, trying to figure out how much I'd seen. One of them escorted me all the way back to the main trail, walking uncomfortably close the whole time. He kept talking about normal park stuff, weather, trail conditions, but his eyes never stopped moving, watching the forest around us. At the parking lot, I saw a convoy of unmarked black SUVs heading up the service road. Men in tactical gear were unloading equipment from the back. I caught a glimpse of what looked like large steel cages and some kind of heavy-duty tranquilizer rifles before someone noticed me watching and blocked my view. Here's the strangest part. I tried to go back 2 weeks later, and that whole section was closed off. New fencing, cameras, warning signs about environmental restoration. I asked one of the regular rangers about it, someone I've known for years. The color drained from his face. He muttered something about federal jurisdiction and walked away. I've been losing sleep thinking about what I saw out there. That smell, those marks, the way those men appeared so quickly. Sometimes late at night, I swear I can still smell that metallic odor, still feel that heavy air. Whatever they're hiding out there in those woods, it isn't normal. Here's another email I got. This one really disturbed me. I have to tell you what happened at this national park a few months ago. I've been hiking these trails for the past 15 years, but I've never seen anything like this. I started early in the morning, around 6 a.m. Everything was normal at first. The trail was quiet, just the usual morning fog rolling through the trees. About 3 miles in, off the main path, I noticed something was wrong. The air had this strange heaviness to it, and there was this smell, like rotting meat mixed with something chemical and metallic. Then I found the destruction. An entire section of forest was just devastated. Trees snapped like toothpicks, not cut or fallen naturally. These were broken from pure force. The ground was torn up, deep gouges in the earth like something massive had been thrashing around. That's when I found the bear. God, the bear. I've been hunting all my life, seen plenty of animal attacks, but this was different. This was violent beyond anything natural. An adult male grizzly had to be at least 800 pounds, just torn apart. Not eaten, not killed for food. Whatever did this was stronger than a grizzly and far more aggressive. The claw marks didn't match anything I've ever seen. The rangers had blocked off the area when I tried to report it. They wouldn't even look at the photos on my phone, just took my name and contact information, told me to delete the pictures and forget what I saw. Said it was probably just a territorial dispute between bears. But I know what bear attacks look like. This wasn't that. Whatever did this, it's still out there in those woods. Don't feel safe here anymore. Just thought someone should know what's really happening in these forests. After gathering these accounts, I can't help but see the connections. The office administrator's discovery of Container 7B's documents, revealing a creature of impossible strength and intelligence. The hiker's encounter with those oddly clean-cut park rangers, and that horrific smell. And finally, that devastating scene of destruction. A full-grown grizzly bear torn apart by something far more powerful than any known predator. 3 separate incidents, 3 different perspectives, all pointing to something being contained and studied in our national parks. Something that's evolving, getting stronger, something that watches and waits. The more I dig into this, the more reports I find. Strange closures, unexplained incidents, areas suddenly declared restricted for vague environmental reasons. But people are starting to notice, starting to ask questions. What strikes me most is how each witness describes the eyes in their encounters, whether in photographs or glimpsed through the trees. Always intelligent, always aware, always angry. I'll keep collecting these stories, but I have to be careful. Emails disappear, witnesses relocate, and sometimes I get the feeling I'm being watched too. If you have your own story about strange encounters in our national parks, feel free to reach out. Just be careful who you share it with. Some things out there don't want to be found.